Hello everyone, welcome to another video on the channel. Today's topic is why don't modern women accept reality? Please subscribe if you haven't yet. Feel free to comment and let's dive in. The idea of reality, the tangible one you observe, versus a simulated virtual matrix like reality is something men can separate more easily. As much as women have a much more evolved emotional intelligence of waiting, of the lack of remorseful feelings towards the opposite sex, then men, this question of looking at the world in a more linear, logical, and rational way is inherent in male nature. So much so that even though there has been an increase in the number of women in the exact sciences around the world, men still predominate in this field. Men tend to be more curious about how things work, while women often have quicker, more accurate emotional intelligence and instinct like a grandmotherly or motherly intuition. These traits seen in nature are the feminine key and are quite impressive. It's simply that contemporary women, as this channel frequently focuses on the crucial role of stimuli and environments portrayed on social networks, particularly Instagram, and how these influence women's minds, the distinction between what is real and what is virtual has become blurred with no clear line dividing them. For women, it's all intertwined into one. The line between the real and virtual worlds was already weak with the rise of Facebook, Orkut, and smartphones due to technology. However, after Instagram appeared, that line was not just weakened but completely broken, creating a significant intersection between the real and virtual worlds that women find difficult to separate from. Men, on the other hand, can often separate them, although some men struggle too, especially when it comes to observing these so-called internet millionaires who seemingly build their fortunes from nothing. In fact, there are indeed some internet millionaires who have built their wealth entirely from scratch. However, they will never fully disclose the exact methods they used to achieve it. Okay. Now, I'm not implying they acted illegally. Rather, I'm suggesting that their specific strategies were unique to their circumstances and only worked for them. Many individuals still end up deceiving themselves to the extent that the majority of victims of pyramid schemes and so-called miracle digital marketing courses tend to be men, right? Because if you examine the conversion rate of those who purchase these courses, consider how many individuals actually bought the course from these so-called millionaires and ended up living a life similar to the person who sold them the course, you'll find that the percentage doesn't even reach 0 or 1%. So when men deceive themselves about life, material possessions, and money, they end up being quite similar to women in the more emotional aspects of things, which is precisely the focus of this video. Why is that? To backtrack a bit, some men have this idea, this belief that everything said, especially about money, by these gurus or internet personalities applies in real life. Anyway, that's my point. Most courses you purchase are meant to teach you how to earn money and succeed in life. It's similar to buying a book by Messi that teaches you how to play soccer. You can't just copy his skills. Similarly, those with miracle trading formulas and precise strategies aren't likely to sell courses due to supply and demand dynamics. The liquidity of money isn't available to everyone globally. Capitalism, while theoretically unlimited, is practically limited. So, ladies, here's an introduction to understanding how you might confuse the real world with the virtual one. Women, let's take, for instance, the case of Alok's wedding in the Maldives, right? DJ Alok is getting married in the beautiful Maldives. They make an effort to bring as much of that reality to themselves as they possibly can. So there are certain women who haven't been affected by this, okay? I'll be creating a video about women who are outside of this situation. These women understand precisely how much of a joke the world has turned into, and they don't, even though they remain quiet and refrain from speaking up to avoid being attacked by feminists. Because you see, when feminists decide to criticize women, it tends to be much harsher than when they criticize men. It's quite similar to when the LGBT community criticizes a gay individual. It's often more severe than when they criticize those who are homophobic. This situation is quite absurd. So a woman might observe Alok getting married, and when she sees that wedding, she might attempt to incorporate that experience into her own life. Therefore, if she already has a boyfriend, on a subconscious level, she might start to expect or desire a beach trip with her boyfriend in the upcoming weeks or even months. The Instagram show differs from the gossip shows like Sonia Abrao and TV Fama. People watched celebrities' lives, but it was more detached from normal life. Instagram made celebrities into influential sub-celebrities. Then the woman began seeing familiar faces from her childhood, including a former college classmate who gained a huge following and married a wealthy husband. There are consistently about 1 to 5% of single women who manage to win the rich husband lottery. These 1 to 5% can affect the other 95 to 99%. This is why many women today are so bitter. They desire a perfect life. They live in a poor country, and men are increasingly becoming aware. More men, even the average ones, are waking up, and those at the top are also waking up. These guys have been avoiding dating for a long time, and they feel desperate because they remain single. So what happens next? Facing reality, the video's theme, returning to the tangible world that Aristotelian reality, is truly painful. Imagine being a full, beautiful woman earning 3 to 7,000 reais monthly with a university degree, perhaps even postgraduate. Whether in e-commerce, a beauty clinic, a large corporation, a careerist, or a teacher, there are no salaries above the average in Brazil because the average in Brazil is very low. The average in Brazil is 300 reais a month. Imagine this woman who has an average income and lives in a big city which is full of entertainment and luxury. She goes to these middle class women's clubs where rich men hang out, to the jockey clubs of Sao Paulo, to expensive electronic clubs and parties in condominiums, on speedboats, and so on, in various cities with a river capital, Minas Gerais, and so on, right? And it's international kneeling, and they see many wealthy men there and think, my God, today I'll make a shot of my life, right? But that doesn't actually happen, does it? Since these individuals are who they are, they have a deep understanding of how the game operates. Most of them are heirs accustomed to being admired and sought after by people of interest. Many of them are also the sons of boomer mothers, a generation that holds control over the global economy. They have been raised in environments where they are frequently the focus of attention. Born in 1964, boomer women spoil many of their daughters, who are many of the women of Generation X and some of Generation Y and modern women. Boomer mothers are more root oriented, let's put it that way. They have very good radar to keep potential vampires away from their children. These guys are already well vaccinated. Of course, there will always be one or two who end up promoting social climbing and taking a girl from the middle class to the upper class. A girl who was teased throughout her youth might end up attracting these guys. Although it occurs occasionally, it's not common. When you leave such an environment filled with beautiful and wealthy people, reality sets in. You realize that women have to face the reality of working there for 8 to 10 hours daily. Despite women advancing in their careers recently, you'll notice that the average Brazilian earns around 2 to 3,000 reais monthly and likely won't afford a trip to Cancun, who will not be taking a trip to the Maldives, who won't be going skiing in Aspen, Colorado, and so forth. It's an incredibly painful process to go through. Therefore, the woman chooses to continue living within the virtual world. She will keep on posting pictures of herself enjoying gin and tonics. She'll continue to post pictures of her Sunday night reflections when she's feeling down. On Fridays and Saturdays, she'll share photos of herself with her friends, enjoying time with their lungs and wine, and so forth. She tries to simulate having an interesting life, even though the vast majority of them feel depressed and anxious. Recently, I created a video discussing the reasons behind their depression and anxiety. Interestingly, a tarot reader left a comment on it stating that everything I mentioned was accurate. Additionally, a woman shared that many of her clients seek her services because they have dreams of marrying a wealthy husband. The issue, however, is that such a husband either never appears or only appears for a very small number of women. Consequently, only about 1 to 5% of women manage to achieve this dream. It's clear that it won't stop or break down since 95% of single women are truly desperate. Among those who are currently single, over 95% usually remain single. This is because they refuse to lower their standards. They are living, have lived, and will continue to live through extremely intense emotions. There simply won't be enough mid-level captains available to save all of them. Consequently, a collapse is inevitable. You'll collapse. Anyway, I know guys who will laugh at this. Others look at it with a dim eye because they think it's going to be left over. Men, that there's going to be more welfare reform, that they're going to invent some tax for single women, single mothers, and divorced women. Anyway, the majority of men in general are very calm because men suffer a lot when they get their asses kicked. Then the guy truly suffers, yet when he remains single for a long duration, he becomes accustomed to it. The more deteriorated the environment becomes, the more women are confusing this virtual reality with the actual reality. They are increasingly living in an illusion within this Instagram bubble. Instagram acts as a major human sugar due to the addiction and dopamine it triggers, leading to rewards and stimuli. As the environment worsens, it becomes increasingly challenging for men to fall in love. So much so that when Alita was writing his books around the years 2005 to 2010, many women were not yet intoxicated by it. Posting pictures on Instagram all the time didn't exist, and neither did smartphones. It was a much more analog world, even though there were already recruiters and everything. However, many women there still had the benefit of the doubt, and it's doubt that causes men to suffer from passion. Not today. Now the guy checks her profile, sees 1,000 likes on her, knows 12 guys who've been with her. It's tougher for guys to fall in love. That's not sexism. It's not about men being insecure or unable to date successful women. That's a pathetic idea. It's not like the women who use the rounds. You're capable, you're safe enough to date a woman who flies. So men aren't distancing themselves from women because they're insecure, because they're macho. It's a natural biological distancing. Because when a man realizes that a woman has been involved with several other men, it's a natural signal to him that she isn't the right woman. She's not the ideal female or partner to bear his child. Most of the time, people seek sex primarily for pleasure rather than for the purpose of procreation. Biologically, we are more programmed to pursue procreation over pleasure. This is due to years of evolution, along with decades, like 20 or 30 years, of promiscuous behavior. Even though it disrupts the environment significantly, it doesn't completely alter it, because there are countless years of biology involved. However, with this blend, this harmony between the real and virtual worlds, women are progressively hoping that they won't need to, that they'll confront reality. And when is it that they must face reality? Generally speaking, it's when they're over 30. As I've already mentioned here, some have excellent genetics and then reach 35. Aesthetic procedures delay ages 32, 33 for some. Generally, I know many internet term operators who release this stuff in the underworld forums that are more, quote, deep web, which then surface on networks like Gado, Cringe, etc. One term that emerged, which I discussed with friends, we couldn't pinpoint exactly who started it, but we know the collective behind it, was this Trintu guy, this Trintu culture. There are many guys out there who have released this concept on the networks. This whole business of Trintu, Trintara. It's not something trivial or innocent at all. These guys did it deliberately to make a mark and turn it to a cultural phenomenon, this culture of Trinturo. So you can observe that many women are celebrating the anniversary of the Trinturo. They're embracing something that was specifically created to stigmatize them, transforming it into something emblematic where they supposedly hit the wall of 30. It's really interesting how this has evolved. They're utilizing that, believing everything is perfectly fine. Women possess a misleading sense of assurance that everything is just fine, that everything happens at its own pace, that it's part of God's plan. The moment they discover, the instant they realize that the person they met on Tinder is actually someone else. You notice that most single women are in their 30s, right? The moment they come to the realization that they've hit 30 and still don't have a boyfriend, yet they're discussing starting a family and getting married, believing they're going to have a picture perfect margin commercial like relationship, then, dear friends, prepare yourselves, get ready for the tears and the return to Tinder. They're already making their way back, and I'm planning to create a video explaining why they're choosing to come back to Tinder. If you're a guy who's in the top 20 or 15%, today you're almost invisible to the most beautiful women. In Brazil, only the top 1 to 5%, actually 1 to 3%, have access to them because Brazil is extremely unequal. Here, being in the top 20% doesn't mean much as it's a level playing field. However, once these women start reaching the age of 30 or 32, you'll begin to notice this is already happening to me, all right? Many women who never even noticed me before have suddenly started approaching me, right? They react to my Instagram stories or whatever I post, and they come up and talk to me even though they never paid attention to me before. This will happen to many of you who are here, okay? Those women who didn't even follow you before, they will start seeking you out, all right? Especially with a stable profile as a civil servant or having a nice body. You don't need to be a millionaire, just slightly above average. Women will seek you out in many ways. Then you decide. Some you want for casual sex, others you will avoid, especially with these crazy laws. Anyways, it's up to the men. I trust the skills of the men who are passionate about this because they know how to play the game well. Men are becoming quieter, less willing to date, and more amused by the whole situation. So, to conclude, In the final minute, women are not going to accept this reality. They won't accept it soon. When they do, they'll be crying, bleeding, and despairing after any man. They'll send the goalkeeper into the box. When the team is desperate to score a goal with only a little time remaining, they might even send the goalkeeper into the box during a corner kick. And they'll keep persisting in this virtual world's illusion. It's like chasing a donkey's carrot that will never arrive. So that's all for now, my friends. Sending hugs and see you next time.